On a quiet evening in an ancient Italian hill town, the life of a young foreign exchange student ends in violence. And the life of another is forever linked to the crime.
Did you kill Meredith?
I wish that question didn't have to be asked.
Amanda Knox would be convicted.
I was afraid of going insane. I was afraid of depression.
She contemplated suicide.
If I'm going to die in prison no matter what, do I want that to be the one thing that I have that's on my terms?
Knox Amanda is free.
And then she was speeding home.
I was not hungry, I was not tired, I just was alive, and I was free.
Amanda's name is finally cleared, or is it? The UW student is on trial again.
I did not believe that I would be going through this again.
As she hopes for closure, Amanda Knox sits down with the first Seattle reporter to tell her story.
I'm not hiding who I am, like I'm not running around in a disguise.
You're watching Amanda Knox, Her Life Now.
Good evening. I'm Linda Byron. In 2007, Amanda Knox looked the part of the all-American girl next door. She was a 20-year-old honors student here at the University of Washington, preparing for the adventure of a lifetime. She was off to Italy for a year-long study abroad program, determined to change her life.
I had an idea of what it meant to be an adult, a confidence, a freedom, a sense of purpose. I was hoping to come back home from Italy having made friends that I would then be able to say, come to Seattle. Being an adult is not what I thought it was going to be.
Knox wouldn't see Seattle again for more than 4 years. Just weeks after she started her classes in the idyllic walled city of Perugia, her British roommate, Meredith, was found murdered, and Knox was arrested for the crime. Instead of the experience she dreamed of, what Knox learned most about Italy was its justice system, a system very different from America's. In Italy, a person can be held in jail up to a year without ever being charged. In the U.S., it's 72 hours. In Italy, jurors are free to watch and read everything about a case. In America, jurors are sequestered in high-profile cases. And in Italy, you can be tried again, even after being acquitted. In America, there's no double jeopardy.
I did not believe that I would be going through this again. I shouldn't have gone through any of it.
I traveled to Perugia 3 times to cover Knox's long, serpentine journey through the Italian justice system. No other story in my career has generated even a fraction of the interest as this one. And people always have the same 2 questions. Did Amanda Knox do it? And who is she, really? The purpose of this program is to help you answer those questions for yourself. Recently, Amanda Knox agreed to sit down with me here in the UW library to talk about the case that still plagues her. Knox's strongest defense is the absence of any physical evidence placing her in the bedroom where Kircher was found with her throat slit. The DNA of this man, Rudy Gaudet, a known burglar, was all over the room. But unfortunately for Knox, the forensic evidence implicating Gaudet didn't come back until nearly 2 weeks after police had arrested Knox and her Italian boyfriend, Raphael Sollecito.
The only people that they were even talking to or interrogating or anything were those who were close to Meredith, and everyone else had a solid alibi, and then there was me and Raphael. And we were easy.
It was Sollecito and Knox who'd first called police after Knox said she discovered the door ajar and blood in the bathroom of her house. Police zeroed in on them as potential suspects, finding their behavior odd.
Raphael kissed me once to try to be supportive of me. I mean, he was patting my back and putting his jacket on me because I was completely frazzled. I couldn't understand what was happening.
Investigators certainly didn't understand Amanda's casual demeanor at the police station. She did the splits and yoga. She giggled and made faces with her boyfriend.
It's true that I kept close to Raphael and that he tried to make me feel better by making faces at me. And I was stretching, and I was pacing, and I was angry, and I was sad, and I was confused, and everyone was there and sad and angry and confused and talking. It's inaccurate to say that I was the one who was the crazy one in that police station.
The lead prosecutor would later tell jurors Amanda was exhibiting the signs of a cold-hearted killer.
These are all little things. They're not signs of a psychotic personality. They're not signs of guilt. I was interrogated for over 50 hours in 4 days.
Knox said she thought she was helping police solve the case until they turned on her.
If you want to find the murderer in someone, I think that you're able to find any excuse for seeing evil.
They didn't believe she'd spent the night at her boyfriend's house as she claimed. They accused her of being in on Kircher's murder.
Anything that I said, they either said I was wrong, and I was lying, and that I was a stupid liar, and that I had to stop lying and stop protecting whoever did it.
Amanda was questioned all through that night, and by morning, she'd changed her story and signed 2 statements. The first states that after smoking a joint with Raphael, she'd left him to meet up with her boss, Patrick Lumumba, who owned a nightclub in Perugia. Knox said together they went to her house, where Patrick had sex with Meredith, and she vaguely remembered he killed her. In her second statement, hours later, Knox said she heard Meredith screaming and covered her ears. But Knox also said she was confused and imagined what could have happened. Was Knox finally confessing she was a murderer, or was she only telling police what they demanded to hear?
They explained it that I was suffering from amnesia, and that all I had to do was think really hard so that I would remember it. I was hit twice on the back of the head. I'd never even been spanked before by my mom. So to be smacked by someone, especially in those circumstances, especially when people are yelling at me and calling me a liar and saying that I know who the murderer is and that I'm going to spend 30 years in prison for protecting them, I was scared out of my life. And everything collapsed. I could not make sense, especially in my exhaustion, especially in that language. I just could not understand why they were treating me that way. And the only conclusion that I could come to from my 20 years of life experience was that they must be right.
Knox says it was the police who threw out Patrick's name. He'd texted her not to come to work on the evening Kircher was murdered. Knox texted back, "See you later," and police interpreted that as plans for a rendezvous.
To them, a confession was a confession was a confession, and that is not the case. When you berate someone and push them and confuse them and lie to them and convince them that they're wrong, you're not finding the truth.
Just hours later, after she'd had a break, food, and water, Knox tried to take back the incriminating statements, writing out her own account. It was too late. She and Raphael were on their way to 4 years in prison, and police had their motive. Knox, Solecito, and Lumumba had sexually assaulted Kircher, who died fighting off the attack. There was one problem. Lumumba had an ironclad alibi and had to be released soon after his arrest. Even so, prosecutors stuck with their group murder theory. And when the crime scene analysis came back, implicating Rudy Gaudet, he simply took Lumumba's place as the third member of the devious plot.
Their theory was Amanda Knox goes wild in Italy, does drugs, is sex obsessed, and gets entwined in a drug-fueled sex game. What about it?
It's impossible. There's no trace of me in the room, so how would I have done that?
Knox would sit in prison while the investigation dragged on for almost a year.
No matter how bad things seemed, it still didn't change the fact that I didn't kill my friend, and so I couldn't be found guilty.
Coming up, when the trial came, it ended in a way she never imagined.
I had to come to terms with the idea that my entire world were those walls.
After her arrest, UW student Amanda Knox began a long waiting game in Italian prison, fighting for her innocence. By contrast, Rudy Gaudet would admit being with Meredith that night, but denied killing her. He was convicted of murder and began serving a 30-year sentence before Knox was even brought to trial.
When her trial did get underway in January 2009, it dragged on for almost a year. During that time, her reputation was trashed. The once wide-eyed student was now Foxy Knoxy, the sex-crazed, angel-faced killer. And because jurors aren't sequestered in Italy, they could soak it all in. In court, prosecutors told jurors not only had Knox confessed, they had her DNA on the murder weapon, a knife from Solecito's kitchen, with Amanda's DNA on the handle and Meredith's on the blade.
No matter how bad things seemed, it still didn't change the fact that I didn't kill my friend, and so I couldn't be found guilty. And then I was convicted, and I was plummeted into this despair of understanding that, they said a 26-year sentence.
Her world was now the Capone prison.
From my conviction onward, I had to come to terms with the idea that my entire world were those walls. And the longer that I stayed in them, the more unreal the world outside of those walls was going to be to me, which included my family.
But Knox's family never stopped fighting for her. They went deeply into debt to pay her Italian lawyers and even rented a house in Italy to be near her.
My family never left me alone. I always had someone to visit me. I always had the minimum amount of spending money that I could use to get coffee or shampoo.
Still, Knox struggled in prison. She had little in common with the Italian women there. She missed Seattle. Her lifeline was 4 visits a month from her family and a weekly 1-hour call home to Seattle, where friends and family gathered in her mother's living room. She remembers the one time she missed the call because the guard didn't show up.
And I just screamed and screamed and screamed for a half an hour until I completely broke down. I was shaking the bars, and I eventually just collapsed on the ground in a weeping mess.
On my pillow.
Knox says it was her family who helped her fight the sense of doom that overwhelmed her.
I spent hours and hours and hours writing letters to them every day.
Ashley, I'm so excited to kick around the soccer ball with you when I get home.
Knox says she knew they would never give up on her, yet she felt them slipping away.
I imagined my sisters growing up and having children and getting old and having all those experiences of life that I thought I was going to have, and then me not. And then what would my relationship with them be? How could I be a positive influence if eventually down the line I found nothing that I could find that was positive about my own existence?
She found herself thinking about suicide.
What would be the most peaceful way? What would be the most dignified way? What would be a gesture that would be meaningful for me, that would be my final gesture? If the only last meaningful thing I had was having control over my own death, what would that be?
She'd been in prison 3 years when her appeals trial began in late 2010.
I was a wreck. I was plastered in hives, stress hives. I was having panic attacks.
But things turned dramatically in Knox's favor. The appeals court threw out all of the DNA evidence and dismissed the confessions as coerced. The case collapsed.
I was a wreck up until that point because I was afraid to even hope. The funny thing is, you can't help but hope. They said I was innocent, and I couldn't hold back anymore. Completely overwhelmed.
Knox fled Italy as quickly as possible.
Her family and Seattle welcomed her home.
I came home to people on the tarmac at the airport holding up placards saying, "We support you," and Rat City supports you, and Rain City supports you, and screaming, and I definitely did not expect that. I did not expect Easy Street Records to have a sign that said, "Welcome home, Amanda."
That sentiment didn't fade in the weeks that followed.
There were people who I did not know who were protecting me from paparazzi, who were chasing me in the grocery store. And I feel like I want to say thank you to Seattle for that.
Knox was safe in Seattle, and it would be nice for her at this point to simply write a happy ending. But last spring, the Italian Supreme Court overturned her acquittal. And right now in Florence, another attempt to convict her is underway.
There's another young woman who will never have a happy ending.
We were very young. She was still figuring herself out, and in the same way, I felt the same way. Like, I was there also to figure myself out.
Coming up, Amanda Knox talks about her relationship with Meredith Kircher.
Did you kill Meredith?
For Seattle, the story was essentially over. Amanda Knox was back from Italy after being pronounced innocent. And the other student in this story, Meredith Kircher, was largely forgotten. Meredith's family is still mourning her death, and to this day believe Amanda was involved. We asked her about that.
Did you kill Meredith?
No, I did not kill Meredith. I wish that question didn't have to be asked.
In her recently published memoir,
She looks even younger than I remember her.
Knox wrote that she felt close to Meredith.
The first night I went there, she took me out to pizza with all of her friends. She was very kind and very smart, and she didn't quite know yet what she wanted to do with her life.
They confided in each other.
She said she either wanted to be a journalist like her dad, or she wanted to maybe go into like international relations. She was still figuring herself out, and in the same way, I felt the same way. Like, I was there also to figure myself out. I thought, oh, I'll be an interpreter, and I'll be a world traveler, and it'll be awesome.
Those dreams were crushed when Meredith was murdered, and Amanda named as her killer.
I was arrested before I was even able to really come to terms with the fact that she was dead. My lawyer showed me her autopsy photos in prison in preparation for what I was going to have to go through in court. I was devastated, and I was unprepared even then, months and months and months after my even imprisonment, after all of those times where they talk about knives and they talk about lovers and they talk about Rudy Gaudet, and they're talking about all of it, and this case is happening, and yet you still are not even coming to terms with it then. I actually had a friend who was murdered, and I've had to defend myself against allegations of being responsible for that instead of being able to come to terms with that and to grieve and to find closure. And I think about her most of all when I think about her family. I've never really had the chance to ever meet her family, and the conditions of their coming into contact with me ever were always through the courtroom. I want to see Meredith's grave. I want to be there, and I want to actually be able to say goodbye to her.
Coming up, Amanda talks about the uncertainty ahead.
I'm not willingly going back to prison, and because that's not where I deserve to be.
And her strong desire to close this chapter of her life.
There's more to my life than this murder trial.
Amanda Knox has been home for 2 years and is trying to finish her degree here at the UW. But the Italian justice system still isn't finished with her. Right now, in Florence, she's being tried again for the murder of Meredith Kircher.
Knox, Amanda, Marie non sono presenti.
It's definitely very stressful. It requires me to be very purposeful as far as prioritizing. At this very moment, I'm talking to you, and that is meaningful. After this, I'm going to go study like crazy for my math midterm.
Knox received millions for the memoir she published earlier this year, enabling her to pay off her family's crushing debts.
And that was a huge relief. But as far as for everything that they've done for me...
When do you think you'll appeal? What will happen next?
I don't think that that's something that I can pay back. It's something that I can try to pay forward.
No one touched by what happened in Perugia on November 1st, 2007 will ever be the same.
Her presence is missed every time we meet up as a family.
Meredith Kircher's family is still seeking answers to her murder. Rudy Gaudet remains in prison for the crime, but his 30-year sentence was reduced to 16 by an appeals court that said it doesn't believe Rudy acted alone. Patrick Lumumba's nightclub went under. He sued Knox for slander and was awarded roughly $50,000. She's appealing and has not paid him any money.
They are acquitted of offense, of charges.
Rafael Solecito and Amanda Knox are following the current murder trial against them from a distance. So far, neither has shown up in court.
I wonder if people actually put themselves in my shoes, if they wouldn't do the exact same thing as me, if they wouldn't stay away from the place that had imprisoned them for 4 years and taken away 4 years of their life wrongfully. I am not going back to prison. I'm not willingly going back to prison, and because that's not where I deserve to be. I think that I will be acquitted. I think that the Supreme Court will uphold that acquittal, and it will be done.
There's no telling how long that will take. So for now, Knox says she's focusing on her future and looking forward to the day when she can write the final chapter still missing from her memoir.
There's more to my life than this murder trial. And I'm so grateful to have that back. And it would be, I am not about to waste my life when I've spent so much time trying to reclaim it back and not let it be wasted.